This question is from Chapter 2, Question 7 in the homework for Chem 1025C. It's a good example of a conversion problem where you have to think about converting two different parts of the problem. It says, after you have worked out at the gym on a stationary bike for 46 minutes. So it's talking about working out on a stationary bike, and it says that you have worked 46 minutes. Now, your numbers may be different because in these types of problems, they do change the values for each question. Then it says, the distance gauge indicates that you have traveled, and it gives you a number that's in a lot of significant figures. And I'm not quite sure why. I'm going to work with it because it's given, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So in this problem, it tells me that on my stationary bike, I traveled 46 minutes, and during that time, I traveled this 14 miles. And it wants to know my average rate in kilometers per hour. Now that word average may throw you off because you might think I need to do something else. But I think they're saying average because if you imagine yourself on a stationary bike, your rate would not be constant. Like you might have times where you're going a little faster or a little slower. But since we're just taking the total time and the total distance, then when we determine the rate using those two numbers, it really is an average over the whole 46 minutes. And they want us to calculate this average rate in units of kilometers per hour. Now there's two ways you can do this. You can start by changing miles into kilometers, and you need to change minutes into hours. And then once you did that, you would divide kilometers by the hours. I'm going to set it up in a way where it's set up like a continuous problem, just to give you an example of how you might start it this way. So they want the rate in kilometers per hour, but I know that it's miles. And for the sake of writing down this problem, I'm not going to write all the digits in the miles, but I will, when I put it in my calculator, I will use them all, but it's too long. So at this very moment, if I took 14.774 miles and divided it by minutes, 46 minutes, I would have the miles per minute. So now I'm going to focus on miles, and I'm going to try to convert it to kilometers. So I'm going into your textbook, and I'm going to find the conversion factor that your textbook uses between miles and kilometers. And I see in the textbook at the end, in one of the appendixes, it's 1.609 kilometers equals 1 mile. And that's the relationship between miles and kilometers. So we can use any two numbers that are equal. We call those equalities. Like right here. Whoops, sorry, something happened to my writing. Right here, this is what we call an equality. An equality, or two things that are equal, can make a conversion factor simply by writing one on top of the other. So what I want to do is I want to take and have the unit miles in the denominator. And the reason is I'm going to want that unit to cancel. I'll do that in just a minute. I'll write the other side, the 1.609 kilometers, on the top. So now what happens with my units, just like numbers cancel, units cancel, and the miles will cancel with the miles there. So miles in the numerator cancel with miles in the denominator. And if I were to stop my problem right now, I would have kilometers per minute. But this problem asks for kilometers per hour. So now I've talked in class, I like to do continuous problems. I'm going to add another conversion factor. And if you like to do this in steps, that's fine. I have found for myself, the more times I stop and use the calculator, the more mistakes I make. So I like to set it up continuously. So now what I'm thinking to myself is, okay, I know the relationship between minutes and hours. I have 60 minutes in 1 hour. Now look, minutes in this initial one is in the denominator. So in my conversion factor, I'm going to put the 60 minutes on the top, because the whole idea with units is we're getting them to cancel. So now the minutes that I started with in the denominator are canceling with the minutes over here in the numerator, and it doesn't matter that they're separated. In multiplication and division, it doesn't matter. And so now the 1 hour, the other half, because it's 60 minutes over 1 hour, that would go the 1 hour on the denominator. So now if I look at my units, I would have kilometers on the top, which is what I want, and hours on the denominator, which is what I want. So now I will do the math. And I am going to put in the long number, because sometimes in the textbook it has you do that, like you'll get the wrong answer. I try to, on these problems, use significant figures, but I notice on this one, for whatever reason, it's not doing significant figures. I'll represent it here just like the problem is in the homework. So I'm entering in this whole number right here. So I enter that, and then I'm going to divide it by 46. That's the first step. Then you always multiply by the numerator, so times 1.609, then divide it by the denominator, divided by 1, which you really don't have to do because dividing by 1 doesn't change the number. And then I'll multiply by the next numerator, so times 60, and then divide it by 1. So I just go from conversion factor to conversion factor, entering it in. And my answer is, I'm going to write it here because it's long, 31.0065755. The units are kilometers per hour. Now in the book, and again, I'm a little confused by this, but it's okay. Sometimes we're confused by things like this. For whatever reason, they're not doing significant figures. And so the answer I have in the box for my problem, this is the answer that they're entering in. So go ahead and enter all of your digits. If we were doing this in correct significant figures, what we do is we look at the numbers we started with, and I see that this number here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 significant figures, and the 46 minutes has 2. So if I were to enter this in the correct sig figs, then the answer would be 2, because you would go with what has the smallest. So I would say 31 kilometers per hour. And let me see, I have my homework pulled up right here. I'm going to enter in 31 and just see if it would accept it or if it takes my answer away. Okay, so I entered in 31, the correct significant figures, into my problem, and it did accept my answer. So that would be the best answers to two significant figures. I hope this helps you. We will continue to work on conversions in class, but keep up the good work.